I am Corinne DeLone-Ladd. I am employed as a librarian through Martin Library, and I am one of the staff at the York Academy Regional Charter School Lower School Library. Did you know that our two York Academy libraries are part of the York County Libraries, and you can request books from our libraries just like you do from the other member libraries of York County Libraries. All right, let's get this chapter book series started. Today my part is going to be about mysteries, and I chose mysteries because they have been one of my favorites since I was a kid. Mysteries involve three main elements. First, you have a problem, or in the case of a mystery, it's usually called a case, and it is what needs to be found in the case of a missing item, or what needs to be solved in some way. For instance, if there was a gruesome murder, or if there's a treasure to be found, or a kidnapped person to be rescued. So you have the case or the problem. The second thing you have is the person or animal that solves that case, called a detective. In many of the books for the younger readers that we're going to look at today, the detective is an animal, and they get into some fun adventures. In the cases of older readers, you'll find that you're moving to human detectives. Now, these detectives, whether they're characters in a book as an animal or a person, have to have information to solve the case, right? So the information they find is called a clue. The clue can be something in writing, it can be something they find, it can be something they think of as they put ideas together, something they see. We'll take a look at how they gather clues later on. So let's get started on some of our books. The first series I want to show you are the Cam Jansen books by David Adler. Cam Jansen is actually this young lady. Now, Cam isn't her real name. Cam is a nickname she gets because her friends nicknamed her Camera. And she got the nickname Camera because her ability to go click in her brain, just like she's taking a picture, and to see the scenery around her in her brain and remember it exactly as it is what makes her a really good detective. We have Cam Jansen and the Mystery of the Dinosaur Bones, and we have Cam Jansen and the Summer Camp Mysteries. This is actually three mysteries in one. These are only two of an entire series I pulled, printed by Scholastic, and I'll just tell you a little bit about both of them. The skeleton one, the missing dinosaur bones. Oh, are the dinosaur bones missing because the original archaeologist took them? Are the dinosaur bones missing because somebody at the museum where Cam and her classmates went for a field trip took them? Are the dinosaur bones missing for some other reason? I wonder. Cam and her best friend Eric and some of her other classmates are going to have to find out. Now, going to summer camp, usually involves sports, being on the water, playing games, doing crafts, sleeping in cabins at night, making new friends, having camp counselors, and all of that happens at their summer camp. But there are also some exciting mysteries at this summer camp. Now, something that happens in the Cam Jansen mysteries, as well as in a lot of these others, is that you can go through the first couple of chapters, read about the characters and where they are, which would be the setting, but you might not know what the mystery is, and you might not know yet what case they have to solve. So sometimes you have to be patient as you're reading mysteries. Other times, it hits you right in the first chapter that something went wrong. Let's take a look at Geronimo Stilton books. Geronimo Stilton is a mouse who runs a newspaper. And he has a sister Thea, and he has some friends that help him lots of times on his cases. The two that I pulled, this one is Geronimo and the Gold Medal Mystery, and the Lost Treasure of the Emerald Eye. Interesting thing about some of the Geronimo Stilton books is not only do they have fancy pictures, but they also have some bits of history, like about the Olympics and where they took place, and the countries that have been involved with the Olympics. There are flags pictured in the book. So sometimes you can learn things from mysteries that are true too. But in this case, Geronimo Stilton, who happens to be the owner and runs a newspaper, is trying to find out what happened at the Olympics in Greece. Now, Geronimo Stilton's not a sports fan. He doesn't like to run. He doesn't like to sweat. He'd rather sit there in an armchair with a bunch of cheesy chews and a good book. But he ends up in Greece trying to find out what happened at the Olympics. The other Geronimo Stilton book I brought along is The Lost Treasure of the Emerald Eye. Remember I said you can go through a couple of chapters sometimes and not know what the mystery is? Well, let's read through part of this and you'll get a good example of that. Chapter 1. Late Again. Putrid cheese puffs. It was 9 o'clock and I, Geronimo Stilton, was late for work again. I rolled out of bed in a minute and was dressed in two. Pretty fast, considering I'm really not a morning mouse. Cheese slices. I hate Monday mornings, I grumbled while brushing my teeth with cheddar-flavored toothpaste. Then I hurried downstairs, stumbled over my tail, and fumbled my way in. Thump, thump, thump. So much for being quiet as a mouse. The streets of New Mouse City, the capital of Mouse Island, were as noisy as ever. I guess everyone was late just like me. Delivery trucks were everywhere, horns honking and sirens blaring and people moving. Taxi, I shouted, jumping into a cab. 17 Swiss Cheese Center. Minutes later, we pulled up to my editorial office. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I run a newspaper. It's called the Rodents Gazette. I took the stairs 2 at a time and burst inside. Oh, what a workout. I was pooped. Maybe I shouldn't have canceled my membership at the gym after all, but before I could think about it, Mousella, my secretary, stopped me. Mr. Stilton, finally, she cried, her glasses dangling off one ear. There's a crowd of rodents waiting to see you. The designers, the printers, the mouse who works the water cooler, and the editor-in-chief wants to speak with you immediately. I headed to my desk. Mousella followed. The copy machine is jammed, she continued. Another mailroom mouse quit. And boss, don't forget you promised me a raise. My head felt like it was about to explode. Even my whiskers hurt. I wouldn't wish this day on the meanest cat ever. I hate Mondays. Chapter 2. Thea's Secret. At lunchtime, my sister Thea, who's a special correspondent for our Reader's Gazette, came by on her motorcycle. I'm taking you out to lunch, she said. We've got reservations at the Mouse House. She grabbed my paw and whispered, I have to tell you a very important secret. 20 minutes later, I peeled myself off Thea's motorcycle and my teeth were chattering. Are you trying to give me a heart attack? I shrieked, tugging my whiskers back into shape. Why do you have to go so fast? It's dangerous. One day we're going to end up sipping cheese through straws at Mouse General Hospital. Still the same old fraidy mouse. My sister laughed, slipping into the restaurant. Of course, before we could sit down, Thea had to greet 50 friends. She had more friends than a cheese delivery man the day before Thanksgiving. Finally, we were seated. So what is it? I asked her impatiently. But my sister was busy looking at the menu. Why don't we order first? Cheddar ravioli for 2, she told the waiter, with extra spicy tomato sauce. Spicy? I groaned. You know I get heartburn. Did I mention my sister can be incredibly annoying at times? Thea waved her paw. Oh, please. You could use a little spice in your life. Besides, you'll have to get used to eating all sorts of food on our trip, she whispered, winking at me. Our trip? What trip? Shh. Shh. Do you want everybody to know? She hissed, pinching my tail. Well, what are you talking about? I hissed. Thea glanced around. Hold your whiskers. I think the waiter may be spying on us. He looks a little suspicious, she said. Who on earth would want to spy on us? I cried. My head started to pound. If you only knew, my sister said, looking very mysterious. I clenched my fists. I couldn't take it anymore. I climbed on my chair and screamed, What are you talking about? And everyone in the restaurant stared. I'm going to stop there and let you figure out how Thea and Geronimo Stilton end up with the lost treasure of the Emerald Eye. Now, you notice we've gone through about 1.5 chapters, and we still don't know anything about the treasure as a reader, other than something from the title of the book would give us a clue. So sometimes you have to wait a while till you get all the clues you need to figure out what the mystery is, too. All right. Now, for some of our older readers in our age group today, you might enjoy the Nancy Drew Mystery Series, written by Carolyn Keen and originally published by Grosset and Dunlap, and then Aladdin Books took over and published some sequels to it. The Nancy Drew Girl Detective part of the series is still based on the original Nancy Drews, but is a little more modernized version. For example, you have one set that's a graphic novel format. You have one that's actually in a notebook or diary format, and the other is just regular book print, but it is a bit more modernized in terms of the subject matter. So the ones I pulled today are The Secret of Redgate Farm and Nancy Drew Girl Detective Riverboat Roost. Let's just start the original one to get you started. Now you notice the drawings in these. Obviously, for an older student, there aren't going to be that many pictures, but these are black and white sketches, even though the front cover was in color. Okay. And in this one, you can see that there are quite a few chapters, and the chapter titles might also give you a clue as to what the mystery might be. The Secret of Redgate Farm, Chapter 1, A Strange Fragrance. That Oriental-looking clerk in the perfume shop certainly acted mysterious, Beth Marvin declared as she and her two friends ended their shopping trip and hurried down the street to the railroad station. Yes, Nancy Drew answered thoughtfully. I wonder why she didn't want you to buy that bottle of blue jade. The price would have discouraged me, spoke up Bess's cousin, dark-haired George Fane. Her boyish name fit her slim build and straightforward, breezy manner. $20 an ounce. Blonde, pretty Bess, who had a love for feminine luxuries, laughed. I was extravagant, but I just couldn't resist such yummy perfume. After all, Dad gave me money to buy something frivolous, so I did. Nancy, by this time, was some distance ahead. Hurry, girls, or we'll miss the train to River Heights. In her active life, the attractive, Titian-haired young sleuth had learned that being on time was important. The three 18-year-old girls continued their frantic pace until the railroad station finally came into view. Once at the station, they set down their packages to rest their arms. Phew, Beth sighed, looking at her watch. I didn't think we'd make it, but we have 2 minutes to spare, and this would be one of July's hottest days. Nancy was pensive, still contemplating their encounter with the mysterious woman in the Oriental perfume shop. She had realized the blue jade was much too expensive, and the unwillingness with the young woman to part with it had stimulated her interest. Instinct had told Nancy there must be some special reason why the saleswoman had been so reluctant to sell the blue jade. Then another idea struck her. You know, she said aloud, it's possible that saleswoman deliberately raised the price of the perfume. George frowned. But why? You would think she'd be thrilled to make such a good sale. Yes, Nancy agreed. That's what perplexes me. There's something very strange about it, and I'd certainly like to know what it is. Okay, we're only partway through chapter 1, and so far we have a mysterious Oriental salesperson with an overpriced perfume bottle, refusing to sell it to someone who had the money to buy it. And what does all that have to do with a place called Redgate Farm? Because if it were me and I were looking at the cover of this book, I would think it should be taking place in a farm, not in a shop where an Oriental lady is selling perfume. So, interesting, isn't it? Nancy Drew Mysteries for the older readers. And the Encyclopedia Brown series. Encyclopedia Brown has a crime in each of the books that he is in. He's a 5th grader. He enjoys sports as well as other things, obviously, from this one. He likes to collect the clues, and then you get to help find out who did it. So, again, if you take a look at the print, the reading level on this is a little easier than the ones that you would have found in the Nancy Drew books, but harder than the Cam Jansen ones or the A to Z mysteries that we're going to talk about in a minute or two. Encyclopedia Brown is written by Donald Sobel and published by Dutton. And this is just a short list of all the other Encyclopedia Brown books. But finally we find one with a boy as the main detective, which is kind of fun too. See guys, it's not always the older girls solving the mysteries, right? Okay, A to Z mysteries are exactly what it says. It's a series of books where each title begins with a letter of the alphabet. In this case, the absent author for A and the runaway horse for R. We also have things like the bald bandit, the school skeleton, okay. And we have three main characters, Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose. They are the three that usually solve the mysteries in these books. Now, in the runaway racehorse, okay, the horse disappears the night before the big race that he was supposed to win. He comes back the day of the race, but he loses. So part of the mystery is, of course, what happened to the runaway racehorse? Did he really run away? And why is he so slow the day of the race when he was supposed to be so fast? In the A to Z mysteries, the absent author, okay, Dink, remember the red-headed guy on top, the main character, he writes as a pen pal to his favorite author, who happens to be a mystery author, and the author agrees to come to Dink's hometown and speak to the kids. The only reason he said he wouldn't come would be if he would be kidnapped. Now, that's kind of a strange thing for an author to say anyway, wouldn't you agree? But you know what happens? The day that Mr. Wallace, the author, is supposed to show up, he doesn't. So Dink and Ruth Rose and Josh have to find out what happened to the absent author. Ron Roy's series of books, A to Z Mysteries, is a fun one for younger readers. You can see from the type and the wording that first, second grade usually handle it pretty well. The one I want to end with is Nate the Great series. This one's Nate the Great and the Musical Note. Nate the Great receives a strange musical note, and he has to use the note to figure out what Nate's friend Pip, mother, wants him to do at 4 o'clock. But Pip has a piano teacher named Rosamond, and Rosamond turns the note into a riddle. So already it's kind of confusing. It started out as a note, it ended up as a riddle. We have Nate, we have Pip, we have his mother wanting him to do something at 4 o'clock, okay. And they can't figure out what it is. They have no idea. Now, the clues in here are pretty logical, and you might be able to figure it out for yourself. It looks like it might be a fairly thick book, but it's for beginning readers, first graders usually. Second grade can handle it really well too. But the last part of the book, all these pages here, are all kinds of extra things that you can do, extra fun activities to have to enjoy. There are things like information about pianos. And then there are games you can play, and you can find out things about fingerprints. You can find out how to make your own musical instrument at home. So the fun thing about the Nate the Great stories is, as along with some other mysteries too, is sometimes there are things in there that you can learn to do. If you go to your library and look for the Nate the Great stories, they're under the authors Marjorie and Craig Sharmat. I'm glad you were able to join us for the first of our chapter book readings today. I hope you got introduced to a lot of mystery stories that you might want to try, depending on the level of your reading, and whether you were reading to someone else or having them read to you. If the libraries are closed all summer, you can still get audiobooks to read, to download through Hoopla and Access 360. And you can get electronic books to download to read also through Access 360. You can go on York County Library's webpage, www.yorklibraries.org, to find out more about these things in the resources section. You can also access something called BookFlix, which is a website through the York County Library's homepage where you have free access to books to read in English and Spanish, and there are games and activities with them, just like there's extra information and activities with the Nate the Great book that I chose for today. So thank you for joining me today. Please try out some mysteries sometime this summer and enjoy the rest of your summer.